Okay. Good morning and welcome to UU Fellowship of Beaufort, South Carolina, virtual worship service on Sunday, October 3rd, 2021. We are glad that you are here this morning, whether you're joining us on your laptop or other tablet, iPad or Kindle or smartphone or who knows, Apple Watch, I don't know. I am the Reverend Lori Hlaban, and it is my joy and privilege to serve this fellowship as its settled minister. Whatever it is that has brought you to our community, whichever paths you have traveled, whomever you love, whatever your ethnicity or immigration status, know that you will find safe harbor here at UUFB. We welcome you as your whole self to this sacred time and place. For at UUFB, we do celebrate the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and guided by love with open minds and hearts, we work together to create the beloved community of justice, compassion, and peace. And now I invite you to join me, as you are willing, in affirming our fellowship's mission statement here on the screen. Nick? Our mission is to create a joyful sanctuary for spiritual and intellectual growth, embracing all souls in a nurturing community from which we go forth as activists for social justice and as stewards of the natural world. Our opening words this morning are from Gretchen Haley. This is a call for all the people longing for liberation, all who wander too often the desert, not sure of the way forward, too often thirsty and afraid, looking for water. Here is a call to collect ourselves and the hopes we have tucked away, set aside too often for another day. Here we are building a welcome table that never finds its end, a river that cannot run dry. The waters are always rapid and then still steady, and then waterfalls. There is nothing tidy or perfect, or nothing or tidy perfect possible in this journey. Abundant life is messy and glorious, filled with risk. This is a call for the diving in with all the dreams of your heart, the struggles, the silliness, the fear, the hunger, the courage, the community, the love. Here we remember the time for joy is always now. Come, let us worship together. We light this chalice, the beacon that calls us to love, to justice, and to the deepening of the Spirit. Now I invite you to shift gears a little bit with me for our meditation from my colleague, Carrie Parker. Beloveds, stop. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Take a breath. Use the fullest capacity of your lungs that you can muster, and let it release. Release your shoulders and that tightness at the back of your skull. Loosen all the parts of you. Hear the crack and the pop as pieces come undone from their knots. Be in that place where you are. Breathe in again. Rise with it and release. Earth creature, you are made of dust and ashes, and you carry the breath of the divine within you. Journey through this day and remain connected to all these things. Do not let crisis steal their realness away. Blessed be, and amen. And Chris is going to play Spirit of Life for us now, and we invite you to join in singing muted as the lyrics appear on the screen. Each week, when we worship in person, we gather an offering to sustain our fellowship and serve our wider community. And while we're not gathering together in person this week and cannot literally pass the baskets, we ask those who are able to continue to give to sustain the fellowship through this crisis, however long it lasts and beyond. We also recognize that the pandemic has had a financial impact on some of us, and we're grateful for whatever you can bring. Thank you for your continued support of UUFB via your time and talent and commitment and treasure, and most of all, your presence on Sunday mornings. It is the best gift you can ever bring. I have one brief reading. It is from James Russell Lowell, who was a Unitarian minister back in the 19th century. And this is from our gray hymnal, hymn number 119. The original hymn was written in 1845 with 4 verses, and our hymnal only has verse 1 and 4, and they've been slightly adapted from the original. Once to every soul and nation comes the moment to decide, in the strife of truth with falsehood for the good or evil side. Then to stand with truth is noble when we share its wretched crust, ere that cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong, though its portion be the scaffold and upon the throne be wrong. Then it is the brave one chooses, while the coward stands aside, till the multitude make virtue of the faith they have denied. Here ends our reading. In December of 1940, and that date is important, a brand new comic book went on sale in the United States. Breaking from the convention of naming superheroes super something, Superman, Supergirl, this comic's main character was dressed in patriotic red, white, and blue and called Captain America. And here's an image of the cover of that first issue published by Timely Comics, which is now known as Marvel Comics. Captain America. Now, yeah, the date is March, but things go on sale a little bit ahead of the actual publication date. And in this image, you can see that Captain America is punching a Nazi. In December 1940, a full year before the attack on Pearl Harbor, which finally pulled the United States into World War II. The character of Captain America was created by Jack Kirby. The cover was created by artists Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. And in Captain America issue number 3, a newcomer to comics named Stan Lee would make his first professional contribution to the story. You can take that image down, Nick. Thank you. Now, a little bit about Stan Lee. Lee would go on to create such beloved characters as Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and Black Widow. And if you're thinking that talking about comic books is frivolous, consider that X-Men and Black Panther, created in the mid-20th century, were explicitly about civil rights. If you don't think so, you didn't understand them. Stan Lee is quoted as saying, "Racism and bigotry are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world." Now, a little bit about Stan Lee, because he was an interesting character. He was drafted during World War II, and he worked in the training film division, where he wrote manuals and scripts for training films, and occasionally produced small cartoon drawings for these materials. And throughout his time in the Army, Lee continued to write for Timely Comics, sending in the stories that he was commissioned to do weekly. And Stan Lee remained publicly active, appearing at conventions such as Comic-Con and on television shows like Big Bang Theory well into his 90s. And he died in 2018 at the age of 95. But back to punching Nazis. Shortly after the election of the 45th president of the United States, a leading figure in the so-called alt-right movement named Richard Spencer was giving an interview in Washington when a person walked up and punched Spencer in the face, twice. Now, Spencer is well known for his white supremacist views and could be characterized as a Nazi, though I don't know if he is in fact a member of the Nazi Party. This event spawned a whole host of punch a Nazi memes on social media and many articles on whether or not it was right to punch a Nazi. At least one of my colleagues wrote a whole sermon about it. Now, I'm not going to review all of the moral arguments, and you can Google them if you want. There are plenty. I will note that when the first issue of Captain America hit the newsstands in 1940, while a good number of people liked the concept, there were also a lot of people who objected strenuously to seeing a superhero punch a Nazi. Remember, 1940, the United States had not yet entered the war. While Unitarians Waitstill and Martha Sharp went to Czechoslovakia in 1939 to help those fleeing the Nazis leave that country, overt anti-Semitism was widespread in this country. According to an article by Stephen Mintz at the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, anti-Semitism fueled by the Depression and by demagogues like the radio priest Charles Coughlin influenced immigration policy. In 1939, pollsters found that 53% of those interviewed agreed with the statement, "Jews are different and should be restricted." Reflecting a nasty strain of anti-Semitism, Congress in 1939 refused to raise immigration quotas to admit 20,000 Jewish children fleeing Nazi oppression, end quote. It is chilling to view the short documentary film available on YouTube titled A Night at the Garden, which features clips of the February 1939 pro-America rally at Madison Square Garden. In it, you can see the Nazi swastika displayed alongside the American flag and members of the audience offering the straight-armed salute. Captain America as a character was a small salvo in the war against fascism in the 20th century. So what is fascism? Fascism is a form of authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, the forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. Yale University professor Jason Stanley's recent book, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them, is a fascinating and accessible treatise on the essential components of the political views that lead one toward fascism. Now, Stanley argues that these views are a constant temptation to be guarded against. And here are a few hallmarks of that mindset, which may sound familiar. And mind you, it's really easy to fall into this from either side. So here are some of the hallmarks. Celebrating a glorious time from the past when all was good and right. Ah, the good old days. Though, as Stanley points out, it is never the actual past that is being celebrated and revered. Rather, it's a mythic past. Control of rhetoric, sometimes known as propaganda. For example, calling the people who stormed the US Capitol on January 6th patriots with political grievances. Anti-intellectualism and the dismissal of people with actual expertise in a subject. Lying as a political strategy. You know, if you tell people something over and over and over again, eventually they begin to believe it. Emphasizing divisions and hierarchy. Divisions of all kinds. City versus country. One politician lost an election when his opponent characterized him as Metro Pete, you know, the guy from the big city. City versus country. Black versus white. Straight versus LGBTQ. Right versus left. And hierarchy. You know, which is better? City versus country. Black versus white. Straight versus queer. Right versus left. Emphasizing law and order. 3 strikes laws. Increasing sentences for minor offenses. Another good book to look at is The New Jim Crow. And sexual anxiety. And this really it's a little bit about sex, but it's mostly about purity and control. Anti-Semitic and racist tropes abound about inferior blood and, you know, the old anxiety about mixing the races. And today we have legislation requiring individuals to use the restrooms that match the sex on their birth certificates. And of course, the ongoing issues with controlling access to reproductive health services. Where, oh, where is Captain America when you need him? Do we need a superhero? Now, anybody who's been paying attention to American politics over the last several years has heard about Antifa, a loose collection of autonomous anti-fascist and anti-racist groups who actually have different strategies and agendas. So there's no single Antifa agenda and movement. But one can argue that there have always been such groups in this country. Antifa groups, anti-fascist groups. We can look at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolating Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, as Antifa-like groups. They were anti-fascist. So was and is the women's movement, the NAACP, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, CARE. Shall I go on? I want to be clear. I'm not saying that any of these organizations I've named are explicitly affiliated with any movement called Antifa. However, they are dedicated to the cause of civil rights for people, especially people on the margins who would be labeled less than in a fascist hierarchy. And our Unitarian Universalist Association is working toward becoming more explicitly anti-fascist in its ongoing work to become more actively anti-racist and welcoming. Our Unitarian Universalist principles call upon us to reject fascist ideals by recognizing each person's inherent worth and dignity, by working to ensure justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and by recognizing and respecting the interdependent web of all existence. Now, superheroes are fictional. There is no Captain America or Superman or Doctor Strange. Eliza in our story for all ages is fictional, and yet our superheroes, like our stories and sometimes our history, can offer us inspiration. Like this little story from Stephen Schick's book, Be the Change. In April 1933, Julie Bonhoeffer was 90 years old. The Nazi Party had transformed her homeland and imprisoned the principles of her church. With the strength of her Christian faith, she defied a Nazi boycott of Jewish businesses and walked through a gauntlet of brown shirts to buy strawberries from forbidden merchants. 3 years later, her grandson, the renowned theologian and author Dietrich Bonhoeffer, eulogized his grandmother, saying this: "We can no longer think about our own lives without thinking of hers. She belongs entirely to us and will always do so. Our minds may fumble as we try to grasp the significance of our actions here at the front line of human achievement and failure. History, however, is only the sequence of moments lived. What we do and fail to do shape the lives and deaths of others. The psalmist's refrain, from generation to generation, reminds us that we are the guardians of the best humankind has claimed from history. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, for all his accomplishments as an interpreter of the Christian faith, is remembered most for the courage he inherited or learned from his grandmother. He died, if you didn't know, in a Gestapo prison for his efforts to bring down the Nazi regime. Memories of hope, courage, and love are our dwelling place from generation to generation. End quote. In the absence of superheroes, there is only us. You and I may not be Captain America or Wonder Woman or Deadpool or Black Panther. We can still be superheroes, though. We can still do what we can, where we can, when we can, paying attention to our words and actions in ongoing work to ensure justice and equity and dignity for everyone. The world needs us, even more than it needs fictional superheroes. Move aside, Captain America, because here we come. So may it be. And our closing words are also from Stephen Schick. Gather what you can, for we must leave now. Gather what you must. For hatred is marching and we are no longer safe. What shall we take? Time is running out. The way from here will be rough and we'll make justice as we go. Take only what you can carry. Carry me, history cries. From her wrinkled mouth, she begs, carry me lightly in your hearts. So gather what you can into your hearts. The present moment has arrived and we must leave. We must leave much behind. So may it be. And our closing song is Come and Go With Me to That Land. Chris?
Please sing along, but make sure you're muted. This is such a good one.
Come and go with me to that land. Come
extinguish our chalice. And please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. The chalice flame is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our gathering in community with a mission for justice and our hearts full of love. And I hope you will join us next week. Our month is about social justice, and next week's service is titled Save the Child, ? And I anticipate that we will be seeing each other via Zoom again next week. Thank you all for being here.